Hello everyone, this is the second part of the Last Adventurer series. If you want to watch the first part, check the link in the description, but before we start don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Enjoy! The stumps were burning on the ground, all dead. Debo reported that he managed to gather 27 mana stones and without any care for it, Palm said that they can go now, and so, the two men started traveling through the hot desert, looking for their next target. Looking at the protagonist, Debo was thinking that he misjudged him. He may seem crazy but his skills are amazing. Who else can manipulate a fire arrow like that? He was also thinking that this is a great opportunity to make lots of money. Then, Palm announced that they found it. Another group of stumps. After counting them, Debo reported that they are 9 of them and the protagonist declared that is the perfect number, which made the polearm user wonder why 9 is a perfect number. Looking at Palm, he finally realized what's next. The first attack was a surprise one from above. The power was enough to split the monster in half. But the rest of the stumps got alerted and rushed towards Debo, who was cursing at the fact that he has to fight with all of the monsters alone. He also has to use a weapon that he is not familiar with, which was really annoying. Watching from the sidelines, the protagonist was thinking that Debo is a bit awkward with the polearm, but soon enough he will understand that it's the best weapon for him. After all, the polearm hero recognized the talent in Debo and made him her sole student. While swinging at the monsters, Debo was finally starting to understand the advantages of using the polearm. It has a good reach, is powerful and it feels even more comfortable than a sword. After he relaxed and stared to wield it more gently, he got better at using it. Looking at him, the protagonist was impressed by how fast he managed to get a hang of the polearm. He didn't even awaken a circle yet, but he is already really good. Then the ground started to shake, which made Debo think that it's an earthquake, but a thick root bursted out of the hard rock and almost hit him. It was a big monster that looks like a tree, a stumpy. The big size of the creature left the polearm user stunned. Luckily, Palm moved fast and took Debo out of harm's way, and declared that he will handle the monster, as its big size makes it easier to hit. He fired a magic arrow and hit the monster. But the stumpy blocked it. No damage was dealt. He fired another arrow, and used telekinesis on it, in order to make it hard to block. But again, the monster blocked it. Magic seems to not work on it, so the two men had no choice but to run as fast as they could. Debo was screaming at the protagonist to run faster if he doesn't want to die. But he was thinking that magic definitely works against the monster, otherwise he wouldn't block the attacks. The real problem are the branches that protect the tree from all sides. The monster got close enough to launch an attack, then it swung a thick branch towards the men, but Palm was thinking fast, so using his telekinesis, he took the rock under their feet and used it to get themselves out of harm's way. Debo was impressed by his employer's quick thinking and thanked for saving him, but they weren't safe yet. Now they were between a bunch of stumps and the big stumpy. The protagonist told the polearm user to take care of the small monsters while he deals with the big one. Palm rushed towards his enemy and launched a fire arrow. It exploded right before reaching the monster. But another one was right behind it and it hit, grazing the creature's face. Debo was impressed. After thinking that it's impossible to defeat such a monster, now he had a hope. While launching another attack, Palm was thinking that the tree's branches are too fast, and telekinesis is not enough to steer the arrow through the gaps. But now that he has a second circle, he can conjure magic 2 times. The monster was hit again, destroying one of his main branches. While trying to deal with his own problems, Debo was impressed by the protagonist's idea of launching 2 arrows, one after the other. No matter how fast he moves, he cannot block 2 consecutive attacks. His employer is truly a bigger monster than the one in front of him. Because Debo was doing more admiring than killing, a bunch of stumps surrounded the protagonist. But they were nothing for the second circle adventurer, who used his fire arrow in combination with telekinesis in order to quickly kill all of them. In a disappointed tone, Palm asked Debo why can't he at least deal with the small monsters. At that moment, the Stumpy took advantage of the fact that the protagonist was distracted and launched an attack. He avoided the first, but then came the second, which seemed to be too fast to avoid. Debo was able to react fast enough to save his employer. Then, looking at him, requested to take back all the slander he threw at him, because he just saved him. While preparing his next attack, the protagonist admitted that the polearm user finally seems useful. Then, they both faced the big monster in order to attack it, Debo taking the lead to engage in close combat, and Palm to support with his fire arrows from afar. The protagonist fired his magic and then the polearm user destroyed the branch that the tree was using to block attack, and now the fire arrow had a clear path towards the main branches of the tree, which were hit. The Stumpy had his own plans. He caught Debo mid-air and prepared a double attack, from two sides, but the two adventurers were ready to deal with such a situation. Palm took the right branch and Debo took the left one. They easily dealt with the monster's trap. And the polearm user wasn't done slashing branches. He was running up the tree slashing everything in his way. But his luck ran out. He got hit and the monster tried to eat him. The protagonist used his telekinesis again and sent a boulder to move Debo out of the way. But the big tree monster destroyed that rock. So more rocks were raised into the air. Debo used them to quickly move towards the eyes of the beast and with a decisive hit, the right eye was destroyed. But he let go of the handle of his polearm and was sent flying. The job wasn't done yet, so he jumped back towards the left eye. At the same time, Palm used his telekinesis to grab the polearm and send it back to its owner. Debo grabbed it and slashed the left eye, leaving the monster bling. But he left his footing and fell to the ground. But the protagonist already had his fire arrows fired. They went through the tree's mouth and destroyed the core, igniting the entire thing into a fireball. The two men finally won. They congratulated each other, enjoyed the big fire. In another place, at night, in a house, a girl was sitting at the table with a plate of food in front of her. She was thinking that was getting late so she should eat and then go to sleep. But before that, she decided to say a little prayer in order to thank for the food, when she heard knocks from the door. Who could it be so late at night? Opening the door, she was surprised of her visitor. It was her brother, Debo. The girl was swept by emotions and warmly welcomed her brother back. In another place, in the same night, in a house surrounded by a forest, El Palm was facing the body of a dead person. He was emotionless, like he knew that this scene was waiting for him. The dead person was his father. Without much hesitation, he fired his staff and burned the house, leaving everything behind in the past. Mr. Abbeys of the Gaffer Merchant Union was struggling with an issue. The 100-man gate raid is closing in and he had to organize everything. Sir Rakan, his boss, is overseeing this event so failure is not an option. All 10 major merchant unions will be focusing on clearing this gate as the item drops will be epic or even higher. There is a possibility that legendary items might show up. The stakes are really high so things won't be easy. The Natasha sisters of the Goldrich Merchant Union are so powerful that it's impossible to believe that they are only 2 circle adventurers. The 3 of them are so powerful that the 2 circle adventurers of the Gaffer Merchant Union cannot even be used for comparison. All the top major merchant unions will send all the best adventurers. And the Gaffer Merchant Union will be outclassed because their adventurers' quality is clearly lower. Holding El Palm's profile information, Abbeys was feeling a bit hesitant, but he knew that this person is one of the best options for them right now. Then the door suddenly opened and the union representative got annoyed because they didn't knock before entering. But seeing who it was, hesitated to insist on pursuing the issue. It was Sir Rakan, who immediately asked if the list of parties who are going to participate in the raid are ready. He then sat in Mr. Abbeys' chair, who apologized for the delay. Rakan continued saying that it's unusual for his employee to be late with such things. Then he asked if he considered the adventurer he recommended previously, El Palm. Abbeys answered that he did consider him because he's talented, but because they don't know what exactly happened in the raid, he is skeptical. Chev's party got wiped out so it's normal to have doubts. Rakan suggested to test him again, as there is a good place. Could be better to just gather all the parties he considered. This time there will be plenty of witnesses. Sometime later, in front of a big red gate, for which raid the two main characters were also participating. Debo was excited to see that there are more people in this raid. Then, a group of adventurers walked towards them, asking if they are the fifth party, then commenting that they are only two people with slave background. Looking around, the protagonist noticed that everyone was not welcoming. They're probably thinking that two slaves will only get in their way. He then noticed that all of them are one or two circle adventurers. These are pros that don't need slave baits. Mr. Abbeys has also arrived and got everyone's attention. He then stated that he will keep it short. This is a test and those who show their abilities will get a chance to clear the 100-man gate. The adventurers were shocked to hear those words. He continued that this is special treatment, and to fully take advantage of the opportunity in clearing this 40-man gate. Then everyone went through the gate and arrived in a forest. The adventurers decided to explore separately and only gather together for killing the boss. Who finds the boss first will send a signal. Then they separated and went different directions. The team leader of one of the groups, Sir Dolan, instructed his team to move fast and kill everything they encounter. A small monster appeared from some bushes, and thinking that it's only a small fry, the mage powered up his spell, Energy Bolt, and fired. He then ordered his men to grab the energy stones from the monster's corpse. But the creature was still alive. This completely shocked the party of adventurers. How could it still be alive? That was a very powerful spell. Then they could hear a lot more noise around them, and they were soon enough completely surrounded. After an exhausting battle, they managed to defeat all the tough monsters, but they had used most of their stamina. One of the group members, worried about their circumstances, asked their team leader, what could they do in this situation? The normal monsters of this gate are too strong. Sir Dolan agreed, they cannot win this competition with kill count. They will have to take a risk and go for the boss alone. This means that they will have to break the agreement with the other parties. This is exactly what El Palm predicted the other parties to think. Debo, out of breath, agreed with the protagonist, because the small monsters are way too hard to defeat. Then, he started to whine about how he was not receiving any help. Palm answered that there were only 3 monsters. Debo, not wanting to waste any more time, proposed to go slay the boss, but the protagonist proposed to go wipe out all small monsters. The polearm user was confused as why his employer would propose to wipe out the small mobs when he was just talking about the boss monster. El Palm defended himself by saying that he only stated what the other teams will do. By killing all the small monsters they can get a great score. While the boss will be very dangerous and the competition will be fierce. Also, the other teams might not play fair. Debo was annoyed that his employer was always talking like he knew everything. Palm added that he feels something dangerous about this gate and they should be really careful. In another place, Sir Dolan's team was traveling, looking for the boss monster. One of the team members noticed something and attracted her teammates' attention to it. It was an escape gate. The team leader stated that even if they weren't planning to look for it, it's good that they know where is it, then instructed his team to leave markings in order to easily find it later. Then, one of the team members started to laugh uncontrollably. Sir Dolan noticed and tried to stop him as he was too loud and it could attract monsters. When he grabbed his shoulder to check on him, noticed the distorted face of pain mixed with frantic laughter and got scarred, then he noticed that the entire team was affected by the same issue. The team leader deduced that it must be some type of poison and decided that he has to abandon his team and run away. From behind, the monster who was the cause for this situation followed Sir Dolan and released more of its poison. The last member of the party was also affected by the frantic laughter, and became unable to run away. Debo was walking with the protagonist alongside a ravine, while thinking that only he dealt with the monsters. His employer only watched. Then, they noticed a signal flare, the sign that the boss monster was found. Sometime later, the 2 adventurers arrived at the place where all the parties were supposed to gather after finding the boss. They were surprised to see that they sent the signal, as they expected every party to try and kill the boss monster by themselves. Looking at all the groups, Palm noticed that one of the groups was missing. The man with the red bandana announced that all parties are present and he started to explain the situation. A woman interrupted by saying that Dolan's party is missing. The man stated that it doesn't matter and then continued by saying that they found the boss monster. And when they found it, they also witnessed the annihilation of Dolan's party by the same boss monster, the mad poisonous mushroom. The woman couldn't believe it, as this news shocked her. All the adventurers started to panic. They were saying that the mad poisonous mushroom is too much to handle and that they need to find the escape gate in order to run. Debo never heard about this boss monster and asked El Palm if he knows more. The protagonist ignored his team member and was thinking that the mad poisonous mushroom is the worst boss monster they could have encountered. It uses poison, so it's hard to get close to it, and also, they cannot use numbers to take it down. The best way to take it down is to use ranged attacks. But they need powerful as the boss is sturdy and fast. During this time, Debo got pissed for being ignored. The man with the red bandana declared that the boss monster is in the way of the escape gate, so they have to face it in order to escape. Hearing this, Debo, full of confidence, declared that the boss is nothing, with just one fire arrow from his boss, they'll annihilate it. El Palm told his party member to shut up because they will die without any plans. His fire arrow is not enough to damage it. Even the small monsters are highly resistant, of course that the boss will be very tanky. The red bandana man, by the name of Iburu, said that they shouldn't state the obvious things, and one of his party members said that it's not time for slander, they need to figure out a way. The protagonist raised his hand and said, 50,000 mesos. If everybody pays 50,000 mesos, him and his teammate will be the bait to lure the boss away. As there are 30 adventurers, that will be a total of 1.5 million mesos. That sent Debo into panic. He weren't able to understand his employer's actions. The adventurer with the red bandana started screaming that they shouldn't get ahead of themselves. This boss monster is at another level and cannot be lured away that easily. They might be used to slave tactics, but they cannot expect these tactics to work every time. If their strategy fails, then everyone will die. Slaves are only a nuisance in high-level gates. He also stated that El Palm might be a two-circle adventurer but his other party member looks like a normal slave. He isn't even awakened. Hearing all this, Debo was furious. He had enough hearing them talk like that, looked like they always wanted to start a fight. In a calm tone, El Palm asked Iburu, if their plan is not good enough, what are they going to do in this situation? Does he have a better plan? Seeing that the man in front of him doesn't have an answer, he concluded that the adventurers don't have a better plan, otherwise they wouldn't have shot the signal flare. The protagonist then said that in his party there is a 2-circle and a 1-circle. Debo checked his hand and was surprised to see the circle. He didn't knew when he awakened. He even thought of himself as a genius. El Palm continued saying that his party is not that different from the others, so they shouldn't judge them that much. A woman adventurer attracted the attention of everyone and stated that she and her party is willing to pay them, but she doesn't that much money with her. The protagonist informed her that it's fine, because they can pay once everyone is out. Also, if they don't manage to escape after luring the boss, then they will end up becoming the sacrifice. But everyone needs to agree, and then he gave them time to think about it. The boss monster was next to the escape gate, enjoying a meal comprising of the adventurers he previously encountered. Then a fire arrow was shot towards him. Direct hit. The combination of poison gas and smoke covered the boss. The protagonist, who shot the arrow, told Debo that they will run when the boss notices them. The polearm user was still not happy with the plan. The mad poisonous mushroom dashed out of the smoke with an unbelievable speed that shocked Debo. The plan to lure out the boss monster was working. They were moving away from the escape gate. Seeing this, the woman adventurer instructed one of the other adventurers to quickly activate the gate in order to escape. He activated the gate and everyone started to evacuate. The adventurers were desperately running to save their lives, while El Palm and Debo were running to lure the boss. But the boss wasn't the only thing they had to confront. The small monsters were also trying to get in their way. The polearm user got pissed for being challenged by the small creatures, fired up his weapon, and cleaved right through them. But that small moment it took to slash the mobs, allowed the boss monster to get in close. The protagonist casted his fire arrow and they managed to put a little more distance between them and the mad poisonous mushroom. Palm fired another arrow, but the monster managed to avoid it. The arrow wasn't wasted, because the telekinetic used his ring to manipulate it and hit the boss. Unfortunately, it was way too fast and the arrow didn't find its target. Also, the boss monster managed to close in the distance. Right before they could caught, they reached the ravine and they jumped. In order to not be followed, the protagonist fired at the monster. They dropped into the water, and were took by the current. Out of the water, Debo was out of breath and started to whine that he almost died there. He then asked what was that thing that chased them so ferociously. The protagonist answered that it's the boss of the gate. They already discussed this. In order to kill it, they will have to prepare better. Hearing this, Debo wasn't happy. He asked his employer, why is he talking like they are going to kill that monster? The protagonist answered that they will indeed kill the boss monster, making his teammates shout to not make jokes like that. Palm continued saying that they came in here to hunt the boss monster, and if they escape, they won't be able to re-enter the gate. Debo, still pissed, stated that now they know who the boss monster of this gate is, and they also know how strong it is, they should retreat. The polearm user was thinking that they should escape, as they already fulfilled their roles as baits. There is no way for them to defeat the boss monster, because not even the fire arrow can pierce it. Also, Palm already said that they are going to die if they fight it. The protagonist stated that the situation changed. Now that the competition is gone, it's like getting a free meal. They will also get a bonus when they exit the gate. Then he reminded Debo about the contract. His teammates said that he wants a bonus if they're going to do this. He then asked how are they going to take it down if melee and ranged attacks don't work. Is there a way to kill it without throwing their lives away? Outside the gate, Mr. Abbeys was watching the adventurers exit the portal. He was wondering why are they exiting that fast. This is a 40-man red gate, it's not that easy. He then asked one of the adventurers, Jubra, how did the raid go, and why are some people missing? She answered that they failed to clear it. Dolan's party was wiped out and Palm and his teammate are still inside. They only managed to escape because the two of them baited the boss monster, who cannot be defeated with their group. Angry, Abbeys asked if they did nothing and only ran away with their tails tucked between their legs. The female adventurer answered that they could do nothing as the boss monster was the infamous mad poisonous mushroom. The union representative turned around and announced that he's leaving. Jubra tried to stop Abbeys because Palm and his party member aren't out yet, and because the gate is still open, they are still alive. Mr. Abbeys answered coldly that they won't survive. It's only a matter of time as the boss monster is too powerful. He doesn't have time to wait. As he was leaving, the Gaffer Merchant Union representative was thinking that all those adventurers were useless. They were also unlucky, because two circles cannot defeat the mad poisonous mushroom, but still, he has no use for average adventurers. He needs adventurers who can overcome any type of situation, adventurers that can turn impossible to possible. Back inside the gate, Palm was announcing the start of the boss hunt by firing his magic arrow. The boss monster is faster and sturdier than any monster they encountered until now, also, it can use poison which makes it very hard to deal with. In this type of situations is best to keep distance and overwhelm it with ranged attacks. But the fire arrow that the protagonist can conjure now, cannot achieve that level of power. However, if he uses telekinesis to apply a spin to the arrow at high speed, then its piercing power will be drastically increased. This is a skill that only he can use in the Maple world. He came up with it when he thought of a bullet. An ability that makes the impossible possible. He named it Revolver. The target was hit and the arrow pierced through the thick skin of the boss monster, leaving a big hole in its chest. But the arrow was supposed to hit the head, in order to destroy the core in one hit. Palm missed. This will not be an easy fight. The mad poisonous mushroom was already rushing towards the location the arrow was fired from. The protagonist fired another shot, but it missed. It's really hard to hit a moving target with Revolver. It also has a long cooldown. He was thinking that he needs to finish this before the boss reaches his position. Another shot was fired, but it also missed. This was not all they had prepared to deal with this ferocious creature. Debo was hiding behind a tree, and when the monster got close, he pulled the rope, tripping it. This position was strategically selected because there was a swamp nearby. The boss monster fell in the swamp after tripping. The mad poisonous mushroom was covered in mud, but he came really close to the protagonist, who was looking from above. But the surprised weren't over. Debo, who tied his polearm with a rope, swung his weapon from afar and got a direct hit, making the poisonous blood of the monster fly out. Now that he could stand away from the toxic gas of the boss, Debo was challenging it, asking to play a game together. Thank you for watching the second part of the Last Adventurer series. We hope that you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and comment. See you next time. Goodbye.